What happens when you are starving for connection? When you are hungry to be seen, heard, and accepted? When you have a deep craving for belonging? When you are starving for connection, you will inevitably have no boundaries because setting boundaries with the people around you will mean that they will reject you. And if you are rejected by them and you are already starving for connection, that's going to feel fatal. And I think that explains one of the reasons I didn't have any boundaries before I started healing. And quite frankly, I still struggle a lot with setting boundaries. So today, I'm going to be going unscripted again, and I'm just going to reflect on this concept of boundaries and what they have meant for me before my healing started and how they have taken a whole new meaning as I began healing. Hi, I am Raysa, a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and you are listening to Hello Trauma Brain, a podcast where I share my experiences living with complex PTSD. My hope is this podcast can help destigmatize mental health and provide support to anyone diagnosed with CPTSD who thinks they might have it or has a loved one with this diagnosis. Quick reminder, I am not a licensed psychologist or mental health care professional, and this podcast is not meant to replace nor substitute the care of psychologists, other mental or medical health care professionals. If you think you might have complex PTSD or PTSD, please reach out to your primary care or mental health care provider. Any individuals and resources mentioned in this episode are not sponsoring Hello Trauma Brain. This episode may reference trauma or abuse, and listener discretion is advised. Remember, you can always pause or skip this episode at any time. And now, let's get back to the episode. Hello, dear survivors, and welcome to this episode of Hello Trauma Brain. Thank you for joining me today. If you are listening on YouTube, a gentle reminder to subscribe and hit the like button to let me know this episode was helpful. Quick check-in. Remember that driver from the shuttle I mentioned 2 episodes ago? Well, my car was getting new tires, so guess who was driving the shuttle that day? I swear, I am not making this up. I am on the shuttle with this man, and he always pretends that he doesn't know where I'm going, even though I go to the same place every time. And right as he's about to drop me off, then he'll be like, "Oh, I don't think I remember that." And it kind of made me feel this time when he was doing it like this. I don't think he really remembers me. I think he forgets about me completely, and it's almost like he's seeing a new person. However, this is what he did. Because dropping me off to work, I was with people. So he's pretending he doesn't know where I'm going. On the way back, I'm by myself with him again, like I was last time. And guess what he asked me? "So, did you find that boyfriend yet?" I am not kidding you. He asked me, legitimately asked, so he remembers. And he remembered. And I said, "No, not yet." And I'm just looking out the window, not saying anything. And he goes, "Oh, he's around the corner. There are great guys coming. He's coming. And you're going to be so happy." And I go, And he goes, "What?" I think he has like hearing problems, so he couldn't hear me. Well, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and say that's what it is. I honestly don't know if it was actually that he couldn't hear me or that he was uncomfortable with me not saying anything and was trying to prompt me to say something. I can't tell. I don't know if that's my inner kiddo being paranoid or not. But anyway, when he goes, "What?" I go, "I'm just thinking about what you said." And then he reiterated how happy I'm going to be when this guy arrives in my life. And then I veered the conversation away by talking about something else. But dang, man, like people feeling entitled. Let me tell you something. That's a rant for another day. But briefly, I just want to say this. Like, I don't know when it became normalized for people to intrude in somebody else's business in such an intrusive way. Like, really? Like when did my happiness become equivalent or dependent on a man arriving in my life to make me happier? No offense, but I've been miserable in some of the relationships I have been in. I don't think that just having Prince Charming show up out of nowhere is gonna fix my issues. If I'm not healed, Prince Charming could show up tomorrow and it's gonna be a hot mess because of the CPTSD and because at the rate where I am right now, or at least where I am in my healing, I don't think I'm gonna be attracting Prince Charming anytime soon. And quite frankly, Prince Charming, I don't want Charming. No. If I've learned anything, Charming is a red flag for me. I want somebody who's kind and caring, and quite frankly, somebody who's trying to win over the entire room. That no, that's it used to be what I wanted. It used to be the person I would tune into and be like, "Oh my gosh, choose me, come on, here I am." Now I'm like, if they are in one corner of the room, I'm on the other corner, hoping to God they don't notice me, because I don't want them near me, and yeah. I've heard Dr. Ramani talk about this, how like charming people for her are scary. And I remember her saying one time that she might be like the only person on the planet who thinks charming is terrifying. But I'm going to tell you, Dr. Ramani, if you are listening to this, girl, you're not the only one. After hearing your content, I am just as terrified because you have such a good point. And I have plenty of experiences that reinforce that. And granted, I will recognize that there can be charming people out there who are sweet and not narcissistic and not abusive and toxic. However, yeah, charming has been wrecked for me, so it's gonna be a long time before I go for a charming person ever again, and that's okay. I'm not gonna shame myself for that. So anyway, that that happened this. Oh my gosh, I cannot make this up. This driver. Wow. I won't say his name, but damn, this person. Wow. Anyway, what else is going on? Oy, exhausted. I feel exhausted. I mean, I got home from work on a Friday night and I took a 5-hour nap. Was it 5 hours? Like four to 5 hours. Like I literally just like laid down for like a few minutes and woke up at like 10:30. Oh my god. I only woke up because I was like, I gotta eat something. I hadn't had dinner yet. So I ate something. It's Friday night, so it's okay if I'm up a little bit later. And then I went back to sleep. And I slept a lot. Like I woke up almost at noon on Saturday. So, and that's when I'm recording this. So I woke up at noon today, almost at noon. Oh man, I've been exhausted, really tired. I think I have exerted a lot of mental bandwidth this weekend or this week, and yeah, I feel like I think this is something I hear about, like, you know, your window of tolerance when you're healing, like it can shrink or it can start shrinking. So like before, I could tolerate toxic people around me and they wouldn't take as, I don't want to say like they were not taking a toll. Like they were taking a toll, but I wasn't as aware or as actively trying to navigate them in healthier ways. And that was still really bad for me. Don't get me wrong. Like I cannot go back to that. But now my tolerance to toxicity is so tiny, and it really takes a lot of bandwidth for me to like stay in the room and like not engage, but like, you know, figure out what to do, so you know, until I can get myself out of the situation. And yeah, a lot of mental bandwidth went this week. I won't go down the rabbit hole of figuring out what exactly. I feel like it's a lot of things, or it was a lot of things. My body was screaming to me and it was saying, I am tired, I don't want to be awake right now. And I was like, okay, we're going to rest. And I do feel a lot better after resting. So we'll take it. Absolutely, we'll take it. And, oh, maybe that's what it is. I just realized something, but yeah, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. So I'm going to make that mental note to myself. Yeah, that might be too. Well, I don't think it's the only thing. There's a lot going on in my life right now, put it that way. So let's get into this episode. I want to start this episode off by telling you a little bit of a story, an anecdote about little Raysa that I've heard about. I don't have a memory of this. This was somewhere in probably like age 3, I want to say. It was definitely between before the age of 4. And basically, I was the only kid in the house before, for like the first 3 years of my life before my younger sibling came into the picture. And I heard this story about how, like, before I had this sibling in the house with me, because I do have other siblings, I just didn't grow up with them physically in the same house all the time. My Basically, the story goes, I would hang out by the fence up front. And just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea, because I know living in Pennsylvania, like, it's really not a thing over here. Back in Puerto Rico, definitely around the time when I was growing up there, the crime was really bad. And also, like, they have issues with stray animals, which is really sad situation. And a lot of the houses, they have fences. Like, the houses have to have the fences. They can't just be open. Like, I see people here with like open lawns and stuff, and like, yeah, you wouldn't see that over there. So we had our fence, like our gate, I guess, in the front. And I would sit there or like stand there with like my hand sticking out through the fence. And every time I would see a kid, I would start like yelling at them, or not yelling, but like, trying to get them to come over. I would start saying like, "Hey kid, can you please come over? Like, can you please come play with me?" And I would beg them to come play with me, and they would just keep walking. And I was basically like starving to have a playmate. That's really what it was. This is I was not in school yet. I guess I wasn't in daycare or anything like that. And I just wanted some company. I wanted a kid around my age. And quite frankly, apparently I was asking like way older kids to come play with me, which, stranger danger, right? But that was not in my in my radar. In my radar, I was just desperate for anybody to come play with me. And again, I don't remember doing this. I've been told that I did this as a kid. And I have been thinking about that from time to time as I have been healing, because I think it's such a good metaphor for how I have navigated a lot of my relationships as I grew up and I became an adult and all that. And I think that's a theme for me in my life. Like, I sometimes was just so starved to connect to other people, to the point where I just didn't care. I didn't have a process for screening them to make sure they were safe and good for me. I was just like happy to open the gates and invite in anybody who would come in, which is not good. And I've thought about this a lot, because boundaries are new for me. That's a whole new concept. I honestly, before I started healing significantly, I had no boundaries. I did not know what it was to say no. I was terrible at it. This is how I got myself to be able to say no. I would just overbook the hell out of myself, because I'm not good at lying. I can do it, and I think like when I'm fawning, I'm lying. I'm not doing it on purpose, but I think like when my fawning response gets activated, that's part of it. Like, you're not honest. Like, how else are you gonna people please? Like, you can't be yourself if you really think about it. And I don't like lying on purpose. Like, I don't like knowing a fact and like hiding it from somebody, like, to their face. So in order to avoid, having to lie to get out of invitations, I would just overbook the shit out of myself. So when somebody would invite me to something, I literally, could say, I can't, I'm booked. And it was true. And it bit me in the because not only was I not able to book stuff with people I didn't want to hang out with, now I can't also hang out with the people I did want to hang out with, because I was overbooked. And it really, really hurt my ability to spend time with the people that I wanted around. And it hurt me so much in terms of being overbooked is not good for you. It has not been good for me. Every time I overbooked myself, I'm the one who ends up suffering. And that was a lack of boundaries. I didn't know that I had an ending and the other person had a beginning. Like, my boundaries, my sense of self has been historically very enmeshed. I become what the other person wants me to be. I will do what the other person wants to do. I will eat what they want to eat. I will dress in whichever way they want me to dress. I just didn't have boundaries. I didn't know what they look like, didn't see them modeled. I most certainly was not, figuring it out on my own. I was just like, sure, I understood what the word meant according to a dictionary, but not in terms of psychological boundaries or like even physical boundaries. Like, I can't tell you how many times I have been touched without wanting to. People put their hands on me and I used to play it off and not say anything, and now I'm learning to express like that feel uncomfortable for me. But even culturally, like in PR, we do the kiss in the cheek thing, and you would be forced to do that with everybody. Like, you had to hug and give a kiss in the cheek to everyone, even the creepy person that you didn't want to. And yeah, I just didn't have any boundaries. None. And going back to this metaphor of, your home is like, think about it like your house being like boundaries, right? Like, think about having a visitor. I don't know about you, but like usually like visitors, like I'll prepare the living room if somebody's coming over, and they just hang out in my living room. Like, just because they're inside my apartment doesn't mean that I'm gonna bring them into my bedroom. Like, that's not territory for every single person that comes into my home. And there are some people who they should just stay on the porch. They should not be coming inside your home, right? But when you don't have any boundaries, it's almost like the gate is open out front and all the doors are open. And anybody can literally come in whenever they want and just walk around your home and walk around your house. Just do whatever the heck they want there. So if I think of a house to become a metaphor for having boundaries, some people, they shouldn't make it past the gate. They shouldn't even come in through the gate. They're not safe. They're not coming in. And some other people, they belong on the porch. They can come through the gate, and the porch is all they're going to see. They're never going to step a foot inside the house, right? Some other people can come in and see the kitchen and the living room and the bathroom, and that's cool. But the bedroom door is locked for them. They don't get to go in there. And how do you know who should be allowed to go where, right? And that's a really hard concept for me. And what makes it really hard for me is that my default is to overshare. Anyone out there overshares? And I think what happens with me is I sometimes want to be honest, almost to my detriment. Like, somebody asks me how I'm doing, and I used to just be like, I'm great. Like, that was like the default response. But as I'm becoming more authentic and I'm trying to like not lie and not fawn and not just pretend, that kind of muddies the waters of the boundaries thing, because like, just because somebody's asking me how I'm doing doesn't mean I should give them the whole rundown of like, oh yeah, I have a podcast on complex trauma, and I went no contact with so-and-so, and I've done this, and I've done that, and I have complex PTSD. I don't need to give that information to anyone, really, but not to everyone, most certainly. And navigating that has been really hard for me. Somebody, like, just again going back to this house of boundaries metaphor, like somebody's out of the gate and they're asking, hey, how are you doing, Raysa? Like, I don't know. Lately, what I've been saying is like, it's been hard, but I'm managing, and I do have a support system. Like, they're there, so I'm not completely like desolate, helpless with no tools. Like, I have my tools, I'm using them, but honestly, I'm not doing great. Hard healing from complex PTSD, like managing and coping with having complex PTSD, because as far as I know, there ain't no cure for this shit. Like, I'm gonna have this for the rest of my life. Right now, my life is really hard. I mean, there are days that are better than others. I wouldn't say I have, weeks filled with joy. That's a lie. It's a lot of grief, a lot of sadness, a lot of just ugh. And then there's some good times. Then there's some days where I can set a boundary, or I can do something that honors me, and I feel good about that. And I'm like, okay, it's working. I'm healing. I'm not doing the old pattern. That's a win. But it ain't coming for free. I'm paying my dues here, in all the sense of the word. Yeah, something that I need to work on is, just because somebody's out the gate and they're like, hey, I want to see the whole house, and I'm expecting you to tell me everything, and I want to see every nook and cranny, that doesn't mean I have to let them in. Past the gate, past the porch, in the house, all the way to the basement or the attic. But how do you do that? How do you do that? I'm still figuring it out. That's the honest answer. The reason this episode is called The House of Boundaries is because I'm reflecting on boundaries. Is not how to set boundaries or how to successfully set your boundaries or top 10 phrases you can use to set boundaries. However, P.S. I do have some good news for y'all. My one therapist, a while back, she was walking me through, like, because she does consulting too for communication, and I think like companies or people can hire her to help them, like, craft responses for, like, I don't know, maybe like asking for a raise at work or communicating with someone, like, and she has a lot of really useful like formulas and templates, and I benefit from that as part of being her patient in therapy. And I remember telling her once, like, honestly, like, we need a book on this. Like, I wish there was a book out there with all this stuff. And it got her thinking, and she just told me recently that she actually started writing a book inspired by that. So yay, a book is coming on this. But and I know there are books and people who do stuff with boundaries. Like, I know there's stuff out there already, and more is coming, thank goodness. But yeah, I don't know how to do it. Not effortlessly every single time. I'm learning and I am practicing, and this is almost in sort of what it looks like. For example, recently, I've had some people reach out to me for help, and let me tell you, this was hard because I used to facilitate meetings for survivors. I am a chronic recovering fawner who abandons herself or has a history of abandoning herself for others. And I tend to, like, historically speaking, my impulse is, as bad and awful as I am feeling right now, just drop it and hold space for them and get them to a better place because they're the priority. When my bandwidth is in a good place and when I'm mentally okay, I can hold space, and I'm a good supporter. But lately I have been just running on empty for myself. It's just running on fumes to the point where I'm taking 5-hour naps on Friday nights, which I can't even remember the last time I ever did that, except for like when I'm sick, and sleeping so much, and just, the exhaustion is real. And I am so behind. Like, there's all these messages I haven't even responded to that are now like a month old or more. And I had to, like, really sit, with these requests for help from people that I care about, people that I don't want to leave stranded out there. And it was really triggering for me to say no. And, it wasn't just like I said no and I just sent a no period text, which technically I guess it's a complete sentence according to, I think Oprah said that. I forget who said that. I let them know, like, my bandwidth is just really depleted. I can't support you in the way that I want right now. And I did apologize for that because I do feel bad, I know in the past at one point I told these people, reach out to me if you ever need anything. And here they are doing it, and I couldn't deliver. And it felt awful not to be able to do that. And that's the hard part of learning this stuff. Like, in a weird way, as awful as it felt, I also felt proud of myself because I recognized that my cup was empty. I recognized that I couldn't support them in the way they deserve. Like, I want them to get what they need, and I'm not the person to provide that right now. I'm going to do a half job, and they deserve better than that. And I also honored that I needed to set a boundary because I'm learning to prioritize myself and my own well-being. And if I don't take care of myself, I won't ever be there for them ever again. And I can't have that. So, as awful as it felt, I set the boundary, and they were very loving and accepting of it, which was a great sign that they're people that I can have in my life. Because I can think of other people that would have reacted very poorly to that and shame me and be like, how dare you? Like, what do you mean you can't be there for me? They didn't pull any of those stunts, and that did help tremendously. And that's the power of relational healing, like having a good example from when you set a boundary, right? As opposed to having the usual abusive bullshit. It's just really hard. It's really hard. I'm also learning to and this is a boundary I'm setting with myself, like, how much information to give. Like before, this is true story. Back when I was gigging full time, I would have somebody reach out. And here's the thing, even with overbooking myself with gigs, I would still have my boundaries trampled on, and I would still cave in. Let me give you an example. I would get an inquiry for a gig, and it would be like on whatever day, and I would be like, I can't, I'm actually booked that day. And the person would come back and be like, well, what time? And here I am telling them the time. Oh yeah, from 6 to 10. They're like, well, this gig is at noon. You can make it. I just Googled it. You can make it on time for that. And then I would be like, okay. And I would actually do that. As ridiculous as that sounds right now, and I can't believe I would do that, I would. I totally did more than once. You know how hard it is to work full time? Then on the weekend, on your weekend, do 2 gigs in a row one day. And sometimes I would have a gig the next day. And then do the whole full time and gigs the following weekend ordeal. Like, insane. Anyone surprised that at one point I ended up in the hospital for 5 days when I was gigging hardcore? I'm not shocked. It makes a lot of sense. It checks out. Because if you don't take care of your body and yourself, it will shut it the hell down. We're not meant to live in survival mode chronically, on a default trauma response. It's not good for our bodies. It's not good for us. I know a lot of us out there can say we've done it. I can say I've done it. But I can tell you this too. I have paid the price of having left that way. And the price was steep. And I'm still paying the price. Setting boundaries is hard. And now what I am working on is how much information I give. Somebody invites me to something, I can just say I can't make it. I don't have to give them a whole argument and a whole breakdown of my schedule for that day. They're not asking for that information. They don't need that information. If they love me, they don't need it. They're not going to ask for it, and they're not going to expect it. They will just take the I can't make it and move on. And they won't take it as a personal attack, because it's not. Learning to not have to justify or prove myself or basically, like, I don't know, like, I just had this need to, like, I need to let them know that, it's not because of them, it's because of all these other things. And I was like, you know what, if the roles were reversed, if I was to invite someone to something and they can't make it and they tell me I can't make it, I'm not taking it personal. I'm not like, I can't believe, I wonder what they actually have. Maybe they don't have anything. Heck, if the reason is they actually don't want to do anything that day and they want to rest and take care of themselves, I would applaud them. That's great. That's wow. Good for you. Good for you. So yeah, the house of boundaries. I still struggle with not giving people a whole glimpse of the house. And I think that speaks about, where my healing needs to focus. Because if I am talking to someone, I feel like I still struggle with taking things slow and not disclosing information about myself before they earn that information. And I want to focus on that piece for a moment. The concept of earning it. Like, whoever comes into our house, they need to earn coming into our house. They need to show us that they're trustworthy people, that they're not going to start walking around and my jewelry is going to start missing from my bedroom, Like, that needs to be earned. And it's a privilege. It's not something anyone is entitled to. It is a privilege for you to be allowed in my house. And also, being able to stay. Just because I let you in once doesn't mean that now you have this perpetual, unlimited access to the whole thing. If you show any concerning behavior, if you start stealing if you start wrecking things, if you are not careful in my house, if you disrespect it, if you disrespect me, you might get the porch next time. And if you go ahead and wreck the porch, guess what? You're going to go outside of the fence and I'm not going to let you back in. That's the goal. That's what I'm shooting for. I'm hoping that by the end of this, not the end. I feel like healing is ongoing and it'll always be happening. But I'm hoping that at one point in my journey, it will become easier for me to enforce this. Easier for me to be discerning about who makes it past the gate, who gets to hang out on the porch, who is allowed inside the house to go to the bathroom, who I am okay with house sitting for me, who gets to cook, who I trust cooking in this kitchen, who do I trust going in the basement and seeing the dark and finding out all the stuff that nobody else gets to find out about. And also discerning when I've made the wrong call and changing the access privileges accordingly. So I feel like sometimes, and that's a big struggle for me, once I let you in, I almost feel like, well, too late. And I need to remind myself, like, actually, no, it's not too late. And I'm going to go in a bit of a tangent here, but like, I'm going to say it just in case anybody relates to this too. One thing I struggle with is, or something that I thought would come from my healing that I have learned, or I'm starting to learn is not going to come from my healing, is the ability to just know and make the perfect decision every time. Like, I thought healing meant that I would be able to notice the person outside of the gates and immediately know, okay, they're safe, we're good, let's go. Or be like, nope, you're not coming in. And make that call right there without knowing them. Like, I thought that healing meant that you would be so good at telling these people apart that, you know, from the first encounter, you would know who they are. And if this is something that you've been expecting out of your healing, just like I did at the beginning, I've got a bit of bad news. That's not healing. Healing is not going to make me a psychic. It's not going to make me see the future. I am not going to be able to become a behavioral specialist who can see through every single human being who comes, you know, ringing the bell outside the gate. Sadly, I have to accept that people can wear masks. They can act wonderfully while they're in the porch and really seem like they're safe people to have around here. And, you know, start acting completely different in 3 months. That's not my responsibility. That's not my fault. If that happens, that doesn't mean I am wrong or I got it wrong. It means I now have new information about this person. And I have to reassess the access privileges they have. So if they start showing different colors and claws when I got them in the bedroom, I'm going to have to deal with that and act accordingly and remove those privileges. Now you're not going to get inside the bedroom anymore. And the reason I use metaphors a lot, and if you've heard this podcast, you might have picked up on my use of metaphors before. I love metaphors because they make the concepts a little bit more clear for me. Like, when you read me the definition of boundaries off of a dictionary or a book, it just goes over my head. It really does. Like, that's one thing. Like, set boundaries. What in the hell does that mean? I need some examples, y'all. Like, and even this metaphor is not like an example, right? It is a good way for me to see it and think about it, because that does, like, that I find helpful, which is why I am sharing it with you. Yeah, some examples of boundaries. Some things that I have learned is, you know, there's physical boundaries, there's emotional boundaries, there's like self boundaries. Like, that's something I heard Complex Danny talk about. And it kind of blew my mind because I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. I have to set boundaries with myself. I have to set boundaries with how much Netflix I watch. I have to set boundaries with myself in terms of like, okay, we need to clean this, or we need to rest, or we need to, unfortunately, send a message back to this person saying we can't help them in the way they need right now. Because we need to turn these resources to ourselves. We don't have anything left for anyone else right now. Those are self-boundaries. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I just heard about that like maybe a year ago, a few months ago. If 2 years ago, that would be a stretch, but it's possible. But definitely like not even 5 years ago, I didn't even know that was a thing. Put it that way. So I want to go back to what I was talking about in the intro, which is that when you are starving for connection, your boundaries will be more likely to be non-existent. Because if the only people you are in connection with require you not to have boundaries to maintain that connection, You're just not going to set the boundaries. I mean, why would you, right? So personally for me, the moment I started to notice that I was a little bit more courageous and a little bit more willing to set boundaries with toxic people, that coincided with having safe people in my life too. So as I started making new connections with people that can handle me expressing myself and me being able to be myself and even setting boundaries with them, the moment I had those people in my life, that is the moment when I stopped feeling like I had to do whatever it took to maintain the toxic relationships in my life. Like the moment I had safe people there, all of a sudden when I would interact with the toxic person, part of me stopped caring so much about whether or not it would piss them off if I set a boundary, or if it would piss them off if I said the thing and they left and never spoke to me again. Because I didn't need them that much anymore. I have new people and I'd rather spend my time on the new people. So it almost like shifted things for me to the point of like, now is the other way around. Like instead of me having to do whatever it took to maintain it, now they're going to have to do whatever it takes to be in my life. And when I say whatever it takes, I mean, you're going to have to get healthy. If you are not willing to get healthy, you're not going to be in my life for much longer. You're just not going to. And if you want to stay in the same toxic mess, circling back the same thing, you're going to have to start relying on other people and not me. So I'm just not going to be your person anymore. Not happening. It's just not going to work. And I feel like for us survivors that are healing, this is that reckoning that we experience where we start healing and all of a sudden like all these people that we were in relationship with just start falling through the cracks. And I think that's a thing for a reason. I think that's part of the process. I mean, it has been a part of the process for me. And I noticed that it gets easier to set boundaries when you have safer people that you can fall back onto. It gets easier to set boundaries when the person you're setting boundaries with, all of a sudden, it's not the all or nothing. They're not, like if they decide to walk away, it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying it doesn't hurt, it does. But there's a difference. To me, it feels very different, feeling like this person, let's just say X person walking away is like, oh my gosh, like who am I going to be in connection with if they leave? As opposed to, sucks and I wish you well. But now I also have these other people. And if you decide to walk away from my life, I'm not alone. I'm just not going to be alone, and I'm not going to be destitute anymore. And I think that's a powerful shift. So if setting boundaries has become really, really hard for you, I want to encourage you to look around and see, who's in the circle. Is there a safe person in your circle? And if there's none, that's a call to start making new connections. And for me, it looked like joining a support group with a bunch of strangers. Literally. It literally looked like starting to, every week, join a group of people that I didn't know. And eventually, months down the line, starting to create connections with new people that made it tolerable for me to set boundaries with the toxic ones, because I knew the safer people would be there to help me get through the fall. They were cushions. Like I was, when you set a boundary with a toxic person, you almost have to like brace yourself for the fall. That's really what it feels like to me. You have to brace yourself to fall hard. And the longer you know the person, the harder the fall is going to be. But it hurts a lot more to fall in cement than to fall on a cushion. And when I started having safer people around me, it felt like a little cushion. Like, okay, like even if I fall and I lose one more person, which again hurts like hell, the place where I'm falling has new people that are there for me now. And I'm there for them too. Like I'm seeing them fall. I'm also seeing them set boundaries with the people around them, and I'm holding the cushion. I'm like, don't worry, I got you. It sucks. Let's grieve together that we lost all these people, and let's hold hands through it because we now have each other. I think that was the big piece. Yeah, I think that's an important yet painful phase of healing from relational trauma. And it's what they call that relational healing. Like, that relational healing is learning that setting a boundary doesn't have to be this horrendous experience. And if a person is making it a horrendous experience for you to set a boundary, oh, that person, in my situation, that means that person's gotta go, or that person, the way they are gonna be in my life is gonna change, and it's a personal choice, and you're gonna have to make your personal choices in terms of the people in your life. I'm gonna put it this way: with a healthy person, setting a boundary, letting them know that something they said was hurtful, or saying no, or saying I can't. With a healthy person, it won't be this intolerable experience you might be used to experiencing with other people. That was a big thing for me, to like set a boundary and like being so scared, and all of a sudden they come back with kindness and understanding and non-judgment. They're not shaming me. Like, that is, whew, what? That happens. People do that. And yeah, I just, it's sad, but I've had a lot of wrong people in my life. And I have been, the wrong person in so many people's lives. Like, before I started healing, I was toxic too. And that deserves its own episode. But, just to be clear, part of my healing journey has also meant that I have become a safer person. That I now understand the privilege of earning, being let in someone's home and having access to their information. And I now safeguard it a lot better than I did. Like, honestly, I sometimes, like, gosh, I cringe. Because when I overshare other people's stuff too. And I have a lot of shame about that. And that was not okay. I shouldn't have done that. And now I know better. And I know that it's a privilege to have access to certain information. And it's not on me to be spreading that around. And it doesn't matter if I'm telling it to someone that I trust. Like, there's some things that I need to keep to myself. And that's new. I've learned that too. I'm learning to be a better house guest. That's it. I am learning to be a better house guest too. And I am learning to maintain my house in a better way. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's it. That's the thing with boundaries. It's a dance of how to earn an invitation to someone else's home. You don't just ring the bell and expect them to let you all the way in. I ring the bell, and I know that they're going to have a process. They should have a process. That's a red flag. If I ring the bell now and somebody's like, come right in, I'm going to show you the whole thing, that's going to give me pause. Because just like I should have a process about who I let in, the person I'm interacting with should have a process about who they let in too. And if they don't have a process, it reminds me of old me, and I need more of the new me in my life. Sadly, as much as I have so much compassion for the old Raysa, and I have compassion for people I meet now that are very similar to old Raysa, I've been old Raysa for too long. I've been around old Raysas for too long. I need new Raysa. I need new Raysas. I need more of the healthier dynamics. So I'm a sponge right now. I am like taking in how to do this better than I have ever before. Yeah, that's how you learn. So yeah, that's my little unscripted reflection. We'll see what I can get out of this as I hear it back. And thank you for hanging out inside my house of boundaries today to listen to this. In this week's healing invitation, I want to invite you to reflect on the concept of the house of boundaries. Can you pinpoint which people in your life have access to the whole house, all your information, everything that's going on in your life? Who only has access to superficial things about yourself? See if you can think of the people in your life having access to different parts of the house, and what parts of that house they have access to. And think about whether they have earned to have the access they currently have. Maybe some of them have earned more access than they have. Some other people might have access to way more than what they have earned. It is never too late to change things around and change those access privileges. Are there some people that have access to your house that should be outside of the fence? Think about this. And hopefully that can help you make some decisions about how you go about interacting with these people from now on. Please let me know how this week's healing invitation goes if you choose to accept it. Before we wrap up this episode, all music and production is courtesy of yours truly. Also, I want to share a few ways you can help support this podcast. You can subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or the platform you are using to listen. Share this episode with anyone you can think can benefit from this content. Follow Hello Trauma Brain on Instagram with the handle @HelloTraumaBrain. Subscribe to the Hello Trauma Brain YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when I post a new episode. And you can make a donation by getting me a coffee through the official bio site. No worries, all links will be provided in the show notes. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found this episode helpful. I wish you the best as you reflect on your house of boundaries. It is time for our farewell affirmations. You are welcome to repeat after me. I am enough. I am lovable. And I deserve to heal. I wish you a gentle week, and thank you for listening.